They told you the body is just flesh and bone, that your thoughts are static, that what you can touch is all that matters. But they never told you about the fire inside. Not because they didn't know, but because they didn't want you to find it. There's a force within you older than language, older than civilization, older than belief itself. A serpent coiled at the base of your spine, waiting, not sleeping. It's called Kundalini. And once it rises, nothing stays the same. Not your mind, not your body, not the very fabric of the world you see around you. You felt it, even if you didn't. Have the words, a flicker of energy when everything is still, a knowing without reason, a pull towards something greater. This isn't fantasy. It's what they've buried beneath distractions, obligations, and noise. Because the moment you tap into that power, you stop being easy to control. You stop being predictable. You stop being theirs. You were born with power, not potential power. But from the moment you opened your eyes, the world moved fast to make you forget it. Before you had the chance to explore who you really are, you were given a name, a number, a role. You were told how to behave, what to believe, and where to focus your attention. And while you were learning how to walk, they were already building a cage around your mind. The serpent at the base of your spine wasn't just ignored, it was silenced. Instead of nurturing the energy within you, they made you worship what was outside of you. School taught you to memorize facts, not feel the truth. The media flooded you with distraction, not wisdom. And religion, for many, became a set of rules to follow rather than a path to inner knowing. The system never wanted you to ask questions like, what is this energy I feel when I'm still? Or why do I sense more than what I'm told is real? Because those questions point to something ancient, something powerful, something uncontrollable. Kundalini is not some poetic metaphor. It's a raw biological force, measurable, transformative, and deeply inconvenient for those who profit from your obedience. When awakened, it rises through the body like fire through dry grass, burning away illusions and waking up parts of you that were never meant to sleep. It's why mystics spoke in visions and poets in riddles. Once it rises, the ordinary world cannot contain you, and the system knows it. So instead, they offer a safer version of life. One where your worth is measured by test scores, job titles, and your ability to conform. They keep you at the surface, feeding you shallow victories while burying the depths. Think about it. When was the last time someone taught you to sit in stillness, to breathe into your spine, to listen inward instead of outward? You've been taught to tune out your own body when it's actually the antenna for your highest self. And every time you ignored that inner pull, every time you said yes when something inside screamed no, every time you felt the rush of emotion rising from your core and shoved it down, that was the serpent stirring, trying to wake you, but they trained you to fear it, to label it anxiety or madness or weakness. So you reach for pills, for screens, for distractions, and the fire sinks back into the earth of your body, waiting again. Some knowledge is too potent for platforms like this. That's why we created Insights Academy, our private newsletter where we share the truths that can't be posted here. Sign up through the link in the description and you'll instantly receive a copy of the Kabbalion free for a limited time only. The greatest trick the system ever pulled was convincing you that your power doesn't exist, that the inner electricity you feel is random, meaningless, but it's not. It's your initiation. Kundalini isn't a fantasy, it's your inheritance. A spiritual fire curled beneath your everyday awareness, waiting to rise, waiting to burn away the false layers you've been told are you. And what's left after the burning is not weakness. It's not emptiness. It's clarity. It's force. It's soul. Long before science claimed the body, before religion turned spirit into obedience, and before modern life drowned out mystery with noise, ancient cultures understood something most have forgotten. The body is a vessel, but not just for blood and breath. It's a temple for power. And at the center of that power was Kundalini. The serpent wasn't just a symbol, it was a map. A sacred key whispered across continents, hidden in temples, carved into stone, passed through chants and sacred breath. In India, yogis spoke of Shakti, the divine feminine force coiled at the base of the spine, sleeping until the soul is ready to awaken. In Egypt, the urious serpent on the pharaoh's crown represented divine wisdom rising through the spine into the third eye. In Gnostic texts, the fire of awakening was described as a spiritual current, a purification that revealed the divine within. These weren't metaphors. These were warnings, blueprints, initiation codes. But the world you grew up in wasn't built to carry that kind of fire. The modern age wanted factories, not sages, workers, not mystics. So the wisdom was buried, sometimes burned, sometimes rewritten, sometimes turned into cartoons. The sacred became superstition, the body was reduced to flesh, and the serpent was demonized. Because if you knew what you carried inside, if you knew that divinity isn't in the sky, but in your spine, you would no longer follow orders. You'd start following the truth. Kundalini is more than just energy, it's conscious. It doesn't just activate your system, it rewrites your understanding of reality itself. When it rises, the entire nervous system is flooded with light, memory, and insight. It burns through emotional blockages, karmic residue, and mental programming. You don't just think differently, you become someone else. Or more accurately, you return to the someone you always were beneath the noise. This is why it was hidden, not because it's false, but because it's real. Too real. Real enough to undo everything you've been taught to believe about who you are, what you're capable of, and why you're here. That kind of knowledge threatens control. You can't govern someone who knows their own soul. You can't manipulate someone who's felt divine electricity in their bones. You can't sell a fake version of happiness to someone who's tasted ecstasy from within. And make no mistake, Kundalini isn't gentle. It doesn't always arrive with peace and light. Sometimes it comes as chaos. Sometimes it tears your life apart before rebuilding it in alignment. Because real awakening isn't comfortable, it's raw, it's violent, it's transformative. Like a forest fire that burns dead wood to make room for growth. This energy will destroy what isn't true. And what remains is pure soul, untouched, unshaken, undeniable. That's why ancient mystery schools didn't teach it to everyone. You had to. Be ready. Not perfect, not holy, just ready. Ready to let go of illusion. Ready to surrender control. Ready to feel what it means to be alive in a way no book, no religion, no system ever told you was possible. This is the forbidden knowledge. Not because it's dangerous, but because it's liberating. And in a world built on control, liberation is the most dangerous thing of all. From the very beginning, you were trained to separate, to divide what you feel from what you know, to split your body from your soul, your instinct from your reason, your truth from their approval. This wasn't an accident. It was programming layered into language, stitched into culture, baked into education. You were taught to distrust your inner world, to silence the very voice trying to wake you up. When a child sees light where adults see shadow, we call it imagination. When a teenager questions everything, we call it rebellion. When an adult dares to break the mold, we call it instability. Do you see the pattern? Anything that doesn't fit the system structure is pathologized, dismissed, mocked, and over time, you learn to doubt yourself. Not because you're wrong, but because your truth doesn't fit the box they built for you. But Kundalini doesn't live in that box. It doesn't speak the language of conformity. It doesn't bow to logic. It speaks through sensation, symbolism, dreams, and inner knowing. And that's exactly why they trained you to ignore those things. They gave you words like crazy, delusional, unrealistic to silence your visions. They made spirituality into something you do on weekends, not a way of life. And in doing so, they didn't just separate you from the divine, they separated you from yourself. Language is a beautiful tool, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a weapon. Every phrase you were taught growing up carried an invisible command. Don't talk back means suppress your voice. That's just the way it is, means don't question authority. You're being too sensitive means numb your feelings. These aren't neutral expressions, they're code. Code that teaches you to fragment your being, so you can survive in a world that punishes wholeness. And when the serpent stirs, it doesn't just wake energy. It brings all your suppressed parts to the surface. The parts you buried to be liked, to be good, to be safe. It doesn't just rise. Through your body, it rises through your lies. It breaks the masks. It cracks the shell. And in doing so, it forces you to remember what the world asked you to forget. Most people think awakening is about adding more knowledge, more practices, more wisdom. But Kundalini doesn't add, it strips away. It removes what isn't real. The persona you built to survive begins to crumble. The voice in your head that sounds like your parents, your teachers, your bosses, it gets quieter. And what's left is something ancient, something wild, something utterly free. You may cry without reason. You may feel euphoric one moment and devastated the next. You may wake up at 3 a.m. with your entire body vibrating and no idea why. And if you try to suppress it, if you try to shut it down out of fear or misunderstanding, the energy doesn't go away. It turns inward, it fragments, it distorts. This is why in ancient traditions Kundalini was guarded knowledge. Initiates were prepared through years of meditation, breathwork, and purification, not because the energy is evil, but because it is uncompromising. This is why it terrifies them. A fragmented mind is easy to control. A whole being is unpredictable. You're not meant to be predictable. You're not here to follow scripts. You're here to be a living embodiment of something untamed and eternal. But first, you must see the fragments. You must name the lies. You must understand that the separation they built into you wasn't for your growth, it was for their control. Kundalini doesn't ask for permission, it doesn't care about the rules. When it rises, it rewrites everything, and the illusion of separation begins to dissolve. Not in a flash of light, but in the subtle remembering that you were never just a body. You were never just a mind. You are never just a role. You are a current of awareness flowing through a sacred vessel, ready to return to wholeness. There comes a moment, often without warning, when the world feels like it's tearing at the seams. Not in chaos, but in clarity. You see something in the corner of your mind, feel something just beneath your skin. The breath shifts, the air thickens, the silence becomes loud. You felt it before, haven't you? In a moment of deep stillness, in a dream that felt more real than waking life, in a flash of insight that didn't come from thought, but from somewhere deeper, older, wiser. That's not imagination, that's the serpent stirring. When Kundalini begins to rise, it doesn't knock gently, it surges, it spirals. It climbs, and as it moves, it brings your awareness with it, lifting it out of the mind and into something far more vast. This is where the psychic senses awaken, not because you're developing some new skill, but because you're peeling away the static that blocked what was always there. Clairvoyance, precognition, energy sensitivity, intuitive knowing. These aren't supernatural gifts reserved for a chosen few. They are the natural byproducts of consciousness becoming whole again. Your nervous system becomes a receiver. Your body, once numb to the subtle, becomes alive with signals. You feel the presence of people before they enter the room. You hear the deeper message behind someone's words. You sense the shifts in energy that most never notice. And as strange as it sounds, it doesn't feel strange at all. It feels like finally seeing clearly, finally remembering what it means to feel fully alive. But this awakening isn't all light and bliss. When the serpent rises, it carries the fire of truth, and truth burns. It scorches illusions. It melts false identities. It brings to the surface everything you've suppressed. Old traumas, forgotten memories, ancestral pain. It all comes flooding back, not to punish you, but to be witnessed, felt, and released. Because you can't carry that baggage into the next dimension of yourself. The fire doesn't allow it. And through it all, something deeper begins to emerge. A stillness beneath the storm. A clarity that doesn't depend on thought. A knowing that bypasses words. It's here in this state that you begin to realize that the body isn't just a vehicle. It's a temple, a conduit, a bridge between the finite and the infinite. You start to feel the chakras as living portals. You begin to sense energy not just as theory, but as tangible vibration rising, dancing, pulsing with intelligence. This is what the ancient mystics meant when they spoke of communion with the divine. Not worshipping something outside of you, but merging with something already inside you. The spark of the cosmos encoded in your spine. The soul fire that transforms your body into a living shrine. And when this energy reaches the crown, something extraordinary happens. Not in fireworks or visions, but in simplicity, in peace, in the deep, unwavering sense that you are not separate from anything. That the trees, the sky, the people around you, the rhythm of life itself, it's all you. Not in an egoic way, but in a way that humbles you to the bone. The illusion of isolation collapses. You don't become more, you become real. Kundalini doesn't make you special. It reveals that you were never ordinary. That the world you accepted as normal was a shadow, and that the truth, the real truth, lives in the quiet fire beneath your spine, waiting patiently for you to listen, to surrender, and to rise. Not every awakening is graceful. Not every rise of Kundalini comes in gentle waves. For some, it doesn't feel like enlightenment. It feels like breakdown. This is the part they don't put in the books. The part the love and light crowd often avoids, because while the serpent is sacred, it is also wild. And when it awakens before the body, mind, and spirit are ready, it doesn't illuminate, it consumes. People speak of Kundalini as blissful, euphoric, transcendent, and it can be, but those same people rarely talk about the trembling, the panic, the crushing weight of energy spiraling through a nervous system that's never been prepared to hold it. Heart racing without cause, vision blurring, emotions erupting from nowhere, a sudden sensitivity to light, sound, thought itself. For many, it feels like going mad. And in some cases, it leads them to institutions, to medication, 2 years of confusion because no one told them what was really happening. This is the fire that doesn't just burn illusions. It scorches everything. Your identity, your stability, your attachments. It tears through unresolved trauma like a storm, ripping open memories and fears buried so deep you didn't even know they were there.